and a Gerard, which can be huge, and a Shadowborn Demon, along with some Satyr Wayfinder, some Sylvan Caryatid, some Nemesis Immortal, some Night Howlers. This is a deck that I have been waiting to see on camera for some time now, ever since Ari kind of lit the world on fire with it in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. And our St. Louis Open champion here, Jonathon Habel, is playing that deck.
Yeah, the key payouts for this deck are Night Howler and Nemesis Immortals. Those are creatures that are incredibly efficient once you start milling yourself over.
On Hoey's side, he's playing Black-White Midrange, a deck that I think everyone is really familiar with right now. It's just kind of the variant on Mono-Black Devotion. You've got a small white splash for potentially Elspeth, Blood Baron of Escova, Obsidian, Revoke Existence, maybe a couple other cards, as these players are really in the die roll hard lock here. But it looks like Hoey did get the job done. For Habel, again, this is kind of interesting here because if you've never played against this deck, you don't really know the interactions. And I'm sure that's where Ari probably got a bit of his edge that week in Cincinnati. The fact that Gerard has a lot of text that people are unfamiliar with. Nemesis of Mortals and its cost to go Monstrosity is a lot lower than it may seem, as here's a Thoughtseize to start things off. You're going to see a Night Howler, a Nemesis of Mortals, a Lotleth Troll. You've got a Deathrite Shaman. You see a Satyr Wayfinder over there as well. So again, this is a really obscure strategy that Habel is using.
Although it's gotten a lot more visibility recently. And the fact that the deck's also inexpensive to build means its Magic Online representation is really high. So even if this wasn't the most popular thing to be doing a couple weeks ago, it's certainly more so the case now.
I've played against it a few times online over this past week, and I can safely say that I did not have any idea what I was doing when I was playing against it, which is a little embarrassing. But it is the truth, because it is a really obscure deck. As you see, a Overgrown Tomb is going to come rolling off the top. This is the turn 1 Deathrite Shaman for Habel as he does pass the turn back.
And Deathrite Shaman, the scourge of Modern and Legacy, not very good in Standard as there's an absence of fetch lands, but this green-black Dredge deck is very good at milling itself over, and so Deathrite can do that alongside, you know, gaining life and dealing some damage, all the things we're accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, I'm generally okay with Deathrite in this format. I think it's because there are no fetch lands, but...
Yeah, I'm not okay with fetch lands, and they distort a lot of cards, Deathrite Shaman among them.
Yes.
But Deathrite Shaman itself is fine, and but actually reasonable to play in this deck.
Habel just going to attack here for 1 and then play an Overgrown Tomb tapped. I think the pause for his turn is considering playing Overgrown Tomb untapped and maybe removing Thoughtseize, but he decided not to do that. As he does pass the turn back, does Hoey over to Habel, who has drawn running lands here. He kept a 1-lander and he's drawn 3 in a row. And it looks like he's going to start by attacking yet again. So Hoey's going to go down to 16. 2 from the Deathrite Shaman attacks, and then 2 from the Thoughtseize. Habel going to play a Swamp, and our follow-up will be a Lotless Troll with Regeneration at the ready.
Yeah, I think last turn, Habel may have been contemplating whether or not he wanted to just cast a Lotless Troll on the second turn, but he'd rather play it with some insurance.
So now we're going to see a Desecration Demon. And just passing the turn back here, as Hoey did have access to a Hero's Downfall, but he obviously didn't have a great target for it between Lotless Troll being able to regenerate, and then Deathrite Shaman, not really probably worth a Hero's Downfall given the board state.
And Night Howler is another really cool feature of this deck. I played a match about a month or 2 ago where a Mono Black Devotion list just had Night Howler in it. I don't know if it was in the sideboard or the main deck.
Okay.
And it just beat the crap out of me. So a deck that actually is very good at turning over its own graveyard can incorporate this even more effectively. And against random creature decks, if you're trading or using removal spells, Night Howler can be awesome.
Well, we're turning over some cards now. You see Lotless Troll, Herald, Torment, Nemesis Immortals, along with 2 lands. And we're going to bring Grizzly Salvage up on the screen. And the reason for that is because I think the unique thing about Salvage is I don't think you have to actually take a card with that. You can actually just let 5 cards go to the bin if you want to. Now, Habel actually decided to actually take a card with it, but it says you may put a creature or a land card from them among them into your hand. So you don't actually have to take a card. It can't just be a mill 5 if you want it to be.
Yeah. And this deck has plenty of incentive to just mill itself for 5 sometimes.
Yeah. You see an attack here. Wow, this is going to be a block. Oh, actually, I think the trigger's on, and now we're going to see an attack. There's a chance that Habel could just move in here and discard 4 creatures. And you have to imagine it's got to be really difficult for Hoey to get that thing off the board if it's a 6/6 with a generation available.
Yeah, with Devour Flesh Insurance in play and the Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, I could see this being actually kind of hard. Yeah, moving in. I like it.
I like it.
Moving in, regenerate once. You have the ability to regenerate again with Deathrite Shaman and the Forest. Yeah, I love it, actually. Get that Desecration even off the table. Now, again, there's no lock that this is going to be good to go, but I generally like this play here from Habel. And if you believe and have tested that Lotless Troll being huge against Mono Black or Black-White Devotion or whatever is just lights out with regeneration, then you just do it.
Yeah, Blood Baron complicates this, potentially, but...
That's true.
You're putting him on basically finding that card exactly. And even then, it's not even like Matthew wins the game. The game just continues to be played.
Yeah. Hoey taking a look at the bin over there, wants to see what's down there. As you see, a Hollow Fountain's going to come into play on tap. Of course, Hollow Fountain allows Hoey to actually cast Nightveil Spectre. Also lets him do this, which in the Obsidian Ghost Council. So he's actually going to gain the life back. He's going to blink that out, and he's going to take a whole bunch in just a moment.
Matthew does have the path of being able to damage race and use his removal spells as fogs here on the Lawless Troll, so Hoey's certainly not out of the game.
He's counting up the graveyard. That feels like maybe like a Night Howler or Nemesis of Mortals was a draw step for Habel.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
Night Howler. Yeah, that's going to do it. Jonathon Habel with a top-decked Night Howler. That's going to get bestowed and attack for a whole bunch. He wins game number 1 over Matthew Hoey. Green-Black Dredge up a game over Black-White Midrange. Let's remember here, there's a Thoughtseize to start things off. Habel had a 1-lander, drew a couple of lands, and then absolutely crushed him.
Oh, I think the Green-Black Dredge deck, you had to pressure them. I don't think it's very good at playing against a fast clock and some removal spells. I'm sure the Blue Devotion matchup is not great, as you know, a clock and some bounce spells are really effective. But if you're just kind of messing around, the Dredge deck is awesome.
Well, what Hoey did there was the definition of messing around. Actually, he didn't really do much at all. He just kind of sat there. He played a Thoughtseize, he played Desecration Demon, and then he died.
Yeah.
So, we're going to take a look at the sideboard. You've got Hoey's in front of you. I'll let you start.
2 Doomblades, 2 Lifebane Zombies, a Sin Collector, an Elspeth, a Blood Baron, an Erebos, a Revoke Existence, 2 Underworld Connections, and 4 Staff of the Death Magus. I'm positive we're going to see the Lifebane Zombie and the Doomblades come in. I'm not really sure if he's going to want to touch much else. Maybe Revoke Existence, as he's seen Night Howler and Herald of Torment. Not unreasonable bringing that card, but not a lot of great action here. That said, Matthew's core plan of some discard and some creatures and some removal spells is a fine plan in principle. It's not especially good, but he doesn't have to do any radical overhauls in this matchup to have at least a competitive game plan.
I think that's my favorite part about this Dredge deck right now is it's. I'm going to kind of relate this to Burn a couple weeks back, where, you know, Burn was this thing that was starting to crop up a little bit and people weren't really taking it seriously. So we're not going to see people with sideboard cards against it. And then Burn started to really move up. And maybe, I don't want to say it's breakout performances with Vidianto Ajayi in Los Angeles and he made top 8 with it, because I don't think that's particularly true. But I think that might be the culmination of, all right, this deck is legitimate now. And then Beijing really put on the map, but also Beijing had Staff of the Death Magus. So, you know, Shuhei and Yuya were like, okay, this Burn deck is actually real and I don't want to lose to it. People were actually deploying cards to that strategy. No one's really doing that yet with this Dredge deck because no one's really sure of how real it is. Yeah, Ari made top 16 with it, but making top 16 isn't the same as making top 8, so maybe that performance goes a little bit under the radar. So again, I don't expect Hoey's sideboard, or really anyone's in this room of 637 players, to say, I'm here to beat you, Dredge deck. As we take a look at Habel's sideboard of a Scavenging Ooze, 2 Golgari Charms, 2 Whip of Erebos, 2 Shadowborn Demons, 4 Thoughtseizes, and 4 copies of Mistcutter Hydra. I like Thoughtseize in the matchup. I'm okay with Whip in the matchup. I don't really care for anything else. Obviously, Shadowborn Demon's going to be quite poor here. Mistcutter Hydra is more for mono blue or your control decks. And the Singleton Scavenging Ooze is fine because, of course, you can grow it quite a bit, but I don't think it's all that exciting.
I think the copies of Golgari Charm are not out of the question, as Hoey probably has some number of enchantments and Underworld Connections. You can use it to fizzle a removal spell. It depends. If Jonathon has cards he actively wants to take out, I think Golgari Charm could come in, as it's not the end of the world, but it's certainly not for beating a deck like Black-White Midrange.
I think, you know, this is really interesting just because I think this is a deck where if you're really, really, you know, proficient with playing this Green-Black Dredge deck and you know your matchups and everything, I think you can get a huge edge in the tournament and the field for a couple of weeks until people actually start to take this deck seriously, because this isn't a deck that's seeing a ton of play online. It's certainly not a deck that's seeing a ton of play in the Open Series, and this isn't a deck that people are really talking or writing about. See, Devour Flesh is going to take care of the Elvish Mystic. And as a result, this isn't a deck that people are devoting sideboard cards to or anything right now.
Yeah, I happen to take Ari's opinion very seriously with this kind of stuff. I think that he does a lot of work play testing various standard formats or constructed formats in general. So if he's behind a deck, I believe it's at least legitimate. Maybe it's not the best thing to be doing, but he's never playing nonsense.
Cinder Wayfinder is going to turn over a Lotless Troll and a Nemesis of Mortals, along with the Forest, and the Forest that'll grow to Habel's Grip. This is a Nightveil Spectre off a Hollow Fountain. So a pretty good start here for Hoey. And I would be remiss if I didn't give Conley Wood some credit on this deck, because he is really the one who started on this strategy and really, you know, put in a lot of work to actually make this a deck. So big shout out to Conley on making an obscure strategy, but we all know that Conley loves to brew.
Oh yeah, we played a match several months ago before Born of the Gods online against someone who was playing Gerard and Friends, and we were just doubled over laughing at the Stoneblade office playing this match that we eventually went on to lose.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
typical Conley fashion.
Looks like Night Howler's going to go to the hand here from Commune with the Gods. The rest of the cards are going to go to the graveyard. Some of them are relevant there. In a lot Latrell, another copy of Night Howler. And we're going to play a Deathrite Shaman. I'm curious to see exactly how good a card like Nightveil Spectre is against this deck. We've seen Nightveil Spectre range from being great to sometimes irrelevant, but we're going to start by attacking here for 2. And Habel's going to go down to 15, and this is a forest.
I think the lands are good hits for Matthew, but a lot of the spells that he would flip over here are just kind of nonsense. Nemesis of Bortles and such.
How dare you? That is an enabler for this deck.
Oh, yeah, but it's not an enabler for Matthew's deck.
That's true. How are we going to play Mutavault instead of playing the forest before passing the turn back? A touch surprised by that.
Well, he may want to attack next turn. Jonathon's board is not very good at blocking right now, and I don't think he believes that there's any risk of the Nightveil Spectre dying, so he can always come back and play that forest down the line.
Okay. Again, Hoey knows that Habel does have that Night Howler in his grip. So last game we saw Night Howler get bestowed and deal a whole bunch of damage. I'm not sure if we're going to see that this go around or not. Of course, with bestow, if there's a removal spell in response to the creature it's enchanting, that's okay, because you still get the creature, so it's not the end of the world. And maybe we'll see Habel maybe force that interaction. This is another copy of Satyr Wayfinder first. So right now, Habel is just kind of in setup mode.
He's building a pretty awesome-looking graveyard right now.
Yeah. So Whip of Erebos, another copy of Night Howler, and a Herald of Torment go into the bin. Going to follow up with a Sylvan Caryatid. So a whole lot of mana to be able to potentially do a lot in one turn, as all Habel's going to do is pass the turn back. Again, he's not really underneath a lot of pressure, so he doesn't really have to rush at this point.
Yeah, and with Matthew saying go with all of his mana up, his hand could very easily be a lot of removal spells.
Yeah.
So there's no real reason to commit your entire turn to playing something that'll just get killed. You can set up a bunch of mana and then try to overload Matthew's removal in one turn.
And you can see Hoey, he's a little bit slow to move here. You see you're going to count the graveyard here as Habel for Hoey to give an idea how big, Nemesis Immortals, how cheap is it going to be or how big a Night Howler is going to be. There's got to be some unfamiliarity here for Hoey, because he's looking at a Bile Blight, for example. Am I supposed to fire off Bile Blight on these 2 Satyr Wayfinders because these Wayfinders aren't even that good? Am I supposed to take care of this Deathrite Shaman? Is he even having an effect on this game? Am I supposed to wait with this Bile Blight? If I wait, there's a chance that, my mana is going to be taxed next turn, so I won't have availability to it the following turn. And he is just going to cast Bile Blight right now. But of course, by killing those 2 creatures, I don't think Habel minds too much. They did what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, that's totally fine, I think, if you're in Habel's spot. But Hoey also has 4 main deck copies of Devour Flesh, and he's got to try to turn those spells on at some point, too.
That's hard to do against this deck.
Yeah.
There's a Duress. I wonder if that's going to hit. Okay, it hits with Commune of the Gods. You see a Herald of Torment and a Night Howler along with a forest there at Habel's grip. Duress doesn't seem like at its best in this matchup.
Well, there's some high-impact cards you get to hit. There's a lot of hands that don't go anywhere if you hit Commune with the Gods or Grizzly Salvage.
Okay.
There aren't a lot of targets, that's for sure. Hoey also just might not be entirely certain what's going on with the list.
Yeah.
It sure was good there.
Yeah, not bad taking a Commune with the Gods. Going to play the Swamp, and I'm going to play Desecration even to pass the turn back here. So Habel gets to untap and take a draw. It's a forest, and he can really, really make a huge creature now, because there are a lot of creatures down there in his graveyard, especially with those 2 Satyr Wayfinders, and so he could bestow a Night Howler and really get to work with that Deathrite Shaman if he wants.
I had to imagine that's the turn here. His hand doesn't really allow him to do anything else at this point.
Yeah. He could bestow Herald of Torment. I'm not sure how exciting that play is.
Maybe before Desecration Demon came down, that's exciting, but now, not so much.
Well, he's going to cast it. I'm just going to pass the turn back, leave Deathrite Shaman up, maybe to gain a little bit of life.
He may want to put it's very possible that he wants to put the Night Howler on this instead.
On the Herald?
Yeah. He also gets to bleed out a removal spell potentially this turn, because if Hoey wants to hit with the Nightveil Spectre, he has to get the 3/3 flyer out of the way.
True. We could also see, maybe, this is a turn where we could potentially see, Desecration Demon trigger placed on the stack. All right, sacrifice my Sylvan Caryatid. Eat something, and then I've got my Herald of Torment, and I can actually control your Desecration Demon for just long enough to be able to get the job done. That's what's going to happen. So you see a Deathrite Shaman activation, and then Sylvan Caryatid getting sacrificed. And let's not forget, the Caryatid going to the graveyard is a good thing. That's a good thing for Habel.
Although we are starting to get to a world where Devour Flesh is a meaningful card.
That is not a good thing for Habel.
No.
But he does get to gain a lot of life, probably. So there's that.
Yeah, there is that at least.
Hero's Downfall going to take care of the Herald. In for 2 we go. Top card is a Grizzly Salvage.
Ooh, nice. I can play the forest and cast it.
Now here's one thing. I think it's pretty easy for Habel to actually move in now on the Deathrite Shaman, because you think of the removal spells that Hoey could have access to right here. Yes, there's Devour Flesh that Habel can really do nothing about, but a card like Doomblade and Ultimate Price, not so good against this.
Yeah, Deathrite Shaman's a fairly stable target for these bestow creatures against mono black. A lot of the removal misses this.
I do think you got to move in now, though. Yeah, there's a Night Howler. Here's a big old attack. Univault's on chump blocking duty. And we can figure out exactly how big the Night Hauler is for you guys in just a little bit, but we're going to pass the turn back. Oh, just plus 11.
Yeah, no big deal.
That's a decent amount of damage. I'm not, like, impressed or anything. Sacrifice the Sylvan Caryatid, in comes the Nightveil Spectre. That is a swamp.
But Matthew is armed with a reasonable amount of chump blockers potentially here. Creatures that he has, removal spells are powerful here. He gets to salvage for something.
So you Read the Bones, a Desecration Demon, a Devour Flesh, a Revoke Existence, and a Swamp are the 5 cards that are turned over. So Hoey going to take the Demon, put those cards in the graveyard, give the Grizzly Salvage back over to Habel. Hoey has not played a land yet this turn. He will maybe play the Swamp. He's going to play Mutavault and pass turn back. Looks like we're on chump blocking duty yet again.
Yeah. With Habel having no hand, I like this line from Matthew quite a bit.
Yeah, me too. Me too. If he plays Desecration Demon, there's a chance that something bad could happen. Mm-hmm. Here's an attack, Mutavault. Active. Blocks. Yes. Follow-up. Elvish Mystic to contain, or try to contain, a Desecration Demon for 1 more turn.
Yeah, if he plays the Desecration Demon there, for example, he can lose if Jonathon draws Grizzly Salvage or Commune with the Gods, finds a creature, and mills himself over for enough where the Night Howler is lethal. So even though it looks like Desecration Demon there is really safe with Habel having no cards in his hand, Matthew can actually die from that spot.
Yep. Looks like Hoey just elects not to attack with the Nightveil Spectre. He's playing very conservatively, as you mentioned, to make sure that 1-2 punch actually does not happen. So Habel's going to untap. He'll take a draw. And for Jonathon, he has to keep finding creatures to make sure that he doesn't die. It might seem like, oh, well, what are the chances of that actually happening? But it's not impossible. For a Grizzly Salvage, a Commune, or a Satyr Wayfinder to actually get the job done there.
I think it's getting really complicated if Habel finds another Night Howler.
That's true. That's true, too. Now Habel's deciding if he wants to attack or not. And he does, because I think he has to attack. So there goes Nightveil Spectre. And there's just, wow, this is a super cheap Nemesis Mortals, but it has to be sacrificed.
Well, no, he can sacrifice the Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, he can sacrifice the Shaman and then get the Night Howler back. That's true.
And I think Hoey's hand might just be lands.
Yeah, sacrifice this.
And if his hand is just lands, he is in a lot of trouble.
Bestow interacts so well with this deck. Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of layers.
Yeah, 15/15 Night Howler. Whatever.
It's like an onion. You just keep peeling back the layers.
Oh, that sounds good.
And there's
Where can I get
more
one of those?
layers.
Was it yellow or white onion?
I didn't really get that far into the analogy.
I like onions. Here's an attack for 6. Habel's going to go down to 3. See how he kind of shaking his head. What happened here? Here's a Mutavault back on defense. Nemesis Immortal is going to get blood rushed, so that thing is a 10/10 now. Yep. How did we get here?
Yeah, this is a pretty bizarre board.
I'm kind of glad we did because it's pretty sweet.
If Jonathon finds a creature here, then it forces Matthew to find a removal spell or a creature.
What's happened? Some mana?
Oh my
Night
goodness!
Howler. My God. That's
all right.
Plus, yeah, I would smile too. This is an attack. I think this is a lethal attack.
Yeah,
right?
Hoey's hand's just landed.
Yeah, it's land. Yeah, that's it. That's gonna do it. A top deck Night Howler again from Jonathon Habel gets the job done because he's giving his Nemesis Immortals. You understand? Plus 15.
It's a 25/25. It's the biggest thing we've ever seen.
Yeah, that's a 25/25, and then there's a 15/15 one attacking a Mutavault. You're pretty good, but you're not that good.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You have made a believer out of me. This will be the deck that I'm streaming this week.
Yeah.
Not close, because that was awesome, and I want to figure it out now.
The deck is also roughly $40